La da 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 dee, da 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 da.
It turns out we have a neighbor who has a band who practices every now and then, and they're playing right now. But I don't think they will be audible in the final product.
It would be great if they were like, "So here I am, doing everything I can." Hello, and welcome to the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. K-Slugs.
My name is Peter, a.k.a. Do It For Real, and I'm also your host.
The IG boys are finally back, and better than ever. We apologize for starting Season 4 a little later than expected, as we were both getting adjusted to some life changes.
Yeah.
And, working out, logistics of that. So, yeah.
What has changed exactly, Kevin?
Yeah, so speaking of life changes, as I'm sure you all know, I recently got married.
Ooh.
So, yeah, now I have a beautiful and amazing wife, a.k.a. Dave, and she's awesome. And I also got married again to Peter when he was down here in Tyler, and so we're married too.
Yes, and actually the game that we will be reviewing was Kevin's wedding present to me, because that's the tradition, of course, is giving your spouse a wedding present. And
right.
It's a really interesting, fun game that we'll talk about. But yeah, I was honored to be part of the wedding of Kevin and Dave's wedding, and it was a beautiful ceremony, lots of fun. Loved the epic gamer moments, such as the cake and the the Legend of Zelda theme during the kind of the pre-ceremony, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was amazing. All of us epic gamers. And the crowd were like, heck yeah, dude, Zelda. So, a lot of fun.
Yeah, 10 out of 10, best wedding I've ever been to.
I agree, man. My life change was not quite as life-changing, I guess, but Mitchell and I, my beautiful roommate Mitchell, we moved into a house, which is a lot of fun. It's better than the apartment that we were in. And we also have a cool new roommate who joined us. He's actually from Texas, so that's pretty cool.
Hey.
But he's a cool guy, and we're living in a pretty cool house in a nice neighborhood, moving on up in the world. And K-Boy and Dave Girl over here are married, so
yeah,
good stuff all around. It's a good time
to
be an IG, caster and listener.
Hell yeah, brother.
Well,
so this is our 39th episode, I believe. I believe you were mentioning earlier before we got started. Did you say we were at 2 years of this podcast?
Actually, over 2 years, because I think our first episode came out in late December of 2017, something like that.
I think we recorded it and then you posted it in January.
Oh, you might be right. But either way, I'm pretty sure that was before January 23rd, which is the date of recording. So yeah, over 2 years now we've been around, and we've got some good episodes to speak for that, and more to come in the future, especially in this season. You guys are in for a treat. We got a really good lineup coming this season.
Hell yeah. And speaking of good lineups and good games, Pete Boy, what do we got this time?
We have a little something, a Nintendo 64 gem, none other than Mario Party 3.
Hell yeah. I love this game. I used to play it all the time when I was a kid. I had my friends, primarily my family. I would have them come over, like my cousins, stuff like that. They'd play it with me, and it just created so many nostalgic memories for me. This game's always a fun time, and I'm glad that you got to play with me over the break when you were visiting.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You, me, Dave, and sometimes Chris got to hang out and play the game, and definitely I was lucky to witness the epic Kevin comeback in the last game we played. I believe I sabotaged either myself or somebody else with my favorite part, Chance Time. And Kevin ended up with 7 billion stars and 80 trillion coins or something like that. Definitely won that game. But what's interesting, though, is that you grew up playing Mario Party 3, Chris grew up playing Mario Party 2, and I grew up playing Mario Party 1, which is kind of cool that we have the N64 trilogy represented like that.
Represents.
So whereas you're going to have all the insight into this game, I have only played it at your place. So I guess most of what I have to say will probably be with the original game, the OG, in my mind as a reference point.
Right.
But I think it's interesting to compare how they stack up against each other. And I guess your job will be to provide the real meat and potatoes, because you live and breathe this game, man.
Yeah, I am the provider, as they say. So I will hit you up with that meat and potatoes.
Heck yeah.
Along with some chicken and some pork. Gotta get some stew, maybe. I don't know. This is derailing fast. Let's get to the game. So yeah, Mario Party. What do we know about this game, Pete?
I can tell you first off that this particular game came out in 2001, which is about 2 years after the original came out. So it was indeed a yearly installment, at least during this period of time. But Mario Party, I bet most of our listeners are familiar with that. At least I hope so, because it's definitely a childhood staple for a lot of people our age. Basically, in Mario Party, it's a board game turned into a video game where you've got a board and you've got your Mario characters traveling around the board, and you land on spaces, and the spaces do different things. And after every round of the board game, everyone plays a mini game. And what type of mini game you play depends on the spaces that each person had landed on prior. So if everyone was on a blue space, then it's kind of a 4-person free-for-all. But if, let's say, 2 people landed on a blue space and 2 on red, then you've got a 2 versus 2 situation. So the goal of the game is to play through the board game section and the mini game section in such a way that you get a lot of coins, and you can buy stars with those coins, and whoever has the most stars at the end of the round, or at the end of the whole game rather, wins the whole thing.
Yep, and that's what happened when I stole all of my wife's stars, thanks to Peter.
Yep. Don't do that in your marriage, folks. It was a rough night.
Yeah, not a good way to start your marriage. She was definitely pretty mad at me because I stole her first star, and then Peter gave me the rest of her 3 stars, which helped me win the game, so thanks, Pete. But yeah, she was mad. But yeah, awesome. I can't wait to review this game. I'm excited to give it some scores and hear what you have to say about it. So with that, are you ready to dive into those meat and potatoes?
I am indeed. Head first, actually.
All right. Well, I'll start out on the gameplay, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You already know how Mario Party works by now. If you didn't, you do now because Peter just told you how it works.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out the obvious and state that this is an excellent game to play with a group of friends. That's not just specific to this Mario Party either. It's really kind of applies to the series as a whole. But it's still, I still think it gets points for it. Nintendo has just found a way to really bring more life and flavor to just a standard board game, and not all board games are just boring. I don't mean that, but like it just feels more immersive and interactive and kind of chaotic, which is kind of what makes it fun and what I really love about, this entire series. And it's just really fun when you play any kind of Mario Party game. I know there were some rough periods of, not the classic way of playing Mario Party, and there's like a bus system, and I don't know what happened there. I didn't play those games, but I do have the most recent version of it on the Switch, and so I'll be referencing that one a lot. But I will also say, out of all the Mario Parties I've played, in my opinion, this one has the best mini games. That's not to say that any of the other Mario Parties have like worse mini games or their mini games are bad or anything like that. It's just that these games were the most intuitive, in my opinion, which is quite impressive for a game that's like almost 20 years old. I mean, to say that I still had a lot of fun playing this game, and you could tell it's an old looking game. And I think that just kind of speaks to the gameplay and how they designed the mini games.
Yeah, I think one question here is how much has the gameplay evolved over the past 2 iterations since this is number 3, and I was pleasantly impressed by or pleasantly surprised rather. I guess I was also pleasantly impressed that the games didn't feel too repetitive compared to the ones that I'm familiar with from Mario Party 1. There were maybe like 2 or 3 out of the mini games that we played, and granted we only played a small selection. But there were only 2 or 3 that felt almost identical to the first game. And besides that, I was, enjoying the new mechanics and stuff. I think that there's only so much depth that these mini games can get into, obviously, since they're all short.
Right.
But it's impressive to see what Nintendo does with that time limit and the need to keep it simple, because it's a game that everyone is supposed to be able to hop in and play. You don't need to be a gamer really to enjoy these games. At least you shouldn't be. And the mini games definitely reflect that in a good way, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that you mentioned that. It's like I never felt like any of the games were the same, like for the most part. I mean, in the mechanics, like you said, there's only so much you could do, but I always felt like I'm playing some completely different concept of a game, and I'm just like, that's really awesome for a game that's that old. And I don't know, I had a lot of fun with the mini games. A criticism I do have, however, is that the controls can be quite off-putting to some newcomers.
Yeah.
Part of that has to do with, the Nintendo 64 itself. The controller wasn't, noob-friendly, as they might say. But even some games are kind of difficult to grasp at first and require a few playthroughs to get down. Luckily, they have a feature where you can practice the games as much as you want. So, you have time to get a little bit good at it. But still, there are times where it's kind of like, I'm experienced, but I can tell, like, you and Katie were having trouble on some mini games.
Yeah. The practice feature is really nice. That's something that the first game definitely did not have.
Oh, really?
And I really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to do that as a total newcomer to this particular game.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Another thing is, I do like how customizable the game is, like each Mario Party round. So, like, you can select from AI difficulty for one character to, like, the number of turns that you want to do. Like, there's a ton of maps and characters. This is a little bit going into content, but it's kind of hard not to talk about those when, like, there's not a lot of gameplay to talk about other than, like, a board game aspect. But being able to customize your game is something I found to be quite cool, and you can play it. You can play the game in different ways, right? So it's not just the same thing every time. You can even have a different mix of, like, AI difficulties. So I think that's really cool. Yeah.
I found that being able to customize the number of turns was the part that I personally found the most necessary. I found even that the short 20 turn length felt a little long the first time that we played. Mm-hmm. And the second time, I think we changed it to 15.
Yeah.
And I found that to be a lot punchier of an experience.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, like, not really too much to say about the gameplay, obviously. There's not a whole lot to it. There are some fun aspects to each of the boards.
Yeah.
Like on one board, for example, you can, there's like a fake star, and if you go to that star, you're like, oh, out of luck. And you don't know which star it is. I think when I was younger, I used to like to believe that I knew which star it was. But if I did know when I was younger, I definitely couldn't remember now. I was like, I feel like it had something to do with the eyes of the star, but I wasn't sure.
Fact checkers out there, we need you.
Yeah. All of this being said, though, Mario Party is really only the most fun when you're playing with other people.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure I could say it's like a whole lot of fun when playing by yourself, but it does have its moments, and you can do it. It's just that I don't know that you would spend extensive time playing it by yourself.
Yeah, and one thing that we didn't get to see too much of when we were playing over the break is kind of the robotic aspect of the AI. The one thing that stood out to me in particular was when we had, I think, an AI Daisy on someone's team in a 2v2 situation, and the AI was just performing perfectly, like doing the perfect inputs, getting there on the perfect line. And I think it was on the easy difficulty or maybe normal, but we had done the same minigame with a hard level AI the previous time we had played, and it was performing like just as good as the hard AI. And I'm like, okay, that's a little cheesy, like, and so I just wonder how representative that little example is. Because if the computer is, I assume they can't because there's easy difficulty and hard difficulty, but that's just something that, obviously it's missing that human element of like, oh, what if they mess up, or like, oh, what if they try to mess with me? Like, because they're my friend and they want to mess with me in this video game, you can't do that.
Right.
And I would certainly never recommend playing any Mario Party game by yourself. I used to do it when I was little, and I enjoyed it, but I don't think I could enjoy it nowadays.
Yeah. I think the one time we had 4 players, right? And then Chris quit out. And so then when he quit out, it worked out for me because I ended up teaming up with the computer. So I ended up winning some 2v2s. So I was like, okay, you know what? This is fun.
One thing that makes this game feel like it drags on sometimes is just how often the game can be interrupted by additional mini games, because there's a bunch of characters on the board who can put you in like a duel mini game or in a chance time or something kind of like that. That was happening very often. And I think if you're the type of person who kind of wants the game to go along at a nice clip, I think you might get frustrated. And that's something that's more so in this game compared to Mario Party 1.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's definitely a kind of a stop and go with that. I kind of like it for my own personal taste because it just makes it a lot more than just very repetitive, you know, like, okay, here's a mini game at the end of the turn and stuff like that. It's like it adds some like variable elements to it. And also the newer one, I feel like most of the time wasted in like that one, Super Mario Party, is basically just explaining the game to you, and they like hold your hand through the whole thing, and it's just like, come on, I've played this game like 30 times already. Like, can we just get on with it? So I'd rather have that than what Super Mario Party fills its time with. But yeah, I could see how that could be frustrating. It's like, okay, like, God, another battle mini game. Maybe they could do without so many of those, and perhaps that's also board dependent. I'm not entirely sure. Fact checkers, check us again.
It's definitely the kind of game where an individual player can go a very long time without touching their controller if the circumstances are just right, or just wrong if you find that to be a negative. And that goes further with the notion that this game is definitely more fun if you're with a bunch of friends and you can talk about whatever and hang out while the game's going on. You know, like, it's not the kind of game where you should be laser focused the whole time. Because if that's the case, then you're going to get frustrated by, well, first of all, by like the bullshit chance, not just chance time, but, you know, the entire random element of the whole game. That'll definitely frustrate you if you're like laser focused on trying to win. And then just the variable pace of it can be frustrating too. So it's definitely a social event. It's not like a thing where you should be, you know, betting all your horses on betting all your money on like your particular horse. Yeah,
I agree. It's definitely just a hanging out down the street kind of game.
Yeah, same old thing.
You know. Yeah. But I agree with those points. They're very valid points.
Thanks, man.
That being said, I don't have anything else to add to gameplay. So
I have one more point, so this works out well.
Hit me.
One element that is different from this game compared to the first game is the items that individual players can collect and hold on to and use. In this game, you can pass by different shops run by, for example, Bowser Jr., Baby Bowser. I think Bowser Jr. He runs a shop, and some other character runs a shop. And the items can definitely give you a strategic advantage. They can definitely allow you to make big moves, as they say. And for example, one item will take you straight to a star. And then everyone else is like, oh no, they went straight to the star. Like, you know, easy victory, right? And there's a bunch of other items that do different things, like swap your position on the board. Or there's one item that will act as a key to unlock an area on the board that was normally behind a gate or something. But none of that is present in the original Mario Party at all.
Wow.
The closest thing is that in the original Mario Party, over the course of playing the game several times, you could unlock items that would appear at random. Like, basically, there were dice blocks, like special dice blocks that would appear at random to anybody during the course of the game, with a very small probability. So, like, one such item could potentially like give you a star if you got really lucky, or it could give you coins, or it was like basically just a block that would mess with you somehow when you hit it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was nothing like the strategy of buying certain items and holding on to them until the right moment.
Yeah.
So that definitely added depth to this game that was lacking in the first one, but I'm still not sure if I personally enjoy the items. Sometimes I feel like they can be a little cheesy. Then again, you're not supposed to take this game too seriously, so I'm not like basing my score entirely on that.
Yeah.
But it is something worth talking about, I think.
No, for sure. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because Super Mario Party, the latest one, their items I felt were very lackluster. Like, they didn't really do a whole lot, and there's one clear item that's like better than the rest. Like it's just going straight to the star, and it doesn't cost that many coins to get. And I just feel like the game is. And when you started mentioning that, I started thinking about like how they balanced out the items and stuff like that. And I feel like this game is much more balanced than Super Mario Party, like the latest iteration. It's like because the latest iteration is just like too easy to get a star, and it's just basically circumstance that you happen upon the star or happen upon an item that gets you straight to the star, or the shop. They have shops in that one too, and I think that's something that continues throughout, probably from Mario Party 2 to now. It just got me thinking about like game balance and things like that, and there seemed to be no strategy for Super Mario Party, and there seems to be a lot of strategy for for Mario Party 3, and I think that's something to be said about the game's design.
Yeah,
it really feels like Nintendo was more invested in Mario Party 3 than they were Super Mario Party. Sad to say, but that's not to deter anyone from getting Super Mario Party. It's still a fun game to play with friends, especially if you have a Switch and you want to have people over. It's really easy to get into, but there's not a whole lot of depth to that game. And I feel like there's a lot of depth to this game. And I feel like the items in this game add a lot of depth because there are so many that do so many different things.
Yeah.
Perhaps it should be easier to find the description on your item than going through a list of the description on all the items, but I don't know. I like the way the items worked.
Yeah, I did too.
Well, I think that's going to do it for gameplay. So do we want to give our scores?
Yeah, why don't you go first?
All right, I gave this one a hot, fresh 89.
Oof, you may be disappointed in my score.
I'm gonna guess your score.
Do it.
It's gonna be an AD or 79. 79.
No, it's a 70 flat.
Damn.
I know. Now, keep in mind, 7 out of 10 or 70 out of 100 is still a pretty good score. We say this all the time.
Right.
I think Super Mario or Mario Party in general is not necessarily my favorite like social video game. Granted, it's probably the video game that the most people can hop into without any prior experience and enjoy, and that is the point of it.
Yeah.
But I think just for me, like because of the people that I'm friends with, like we're going to play either Smash Brothers or Mario Kart or something like that. And I think I'd rather play a real board game, a good real board game than Mario Party, just because I don't think the mini games are always like super compelling. And I think that's what makes me hesitant to give it a higher score than what I gave it. And again, I think that's like personal taste.
Yeah. Interesting perspective.
But you also got to wonder like about how inventive this game in particular was when it came out.
Yeah.
Because we do like to give some historical context to the scores. And from what I read, I did some research, it didn't seem to be all that innovative for a Mario Party game. And so I kind of consider that as well.
Yeah, it was really just kind of a buff up from the previous two. Like, they just kept building and building. And I feel like, obviously for the Nintendo 64, it was kind of like the ultimate Mario Party, right? Because it has like the most features and like the most stuff in it.
Yeah.
For the Nintendo 64, I'd say that this is the best one. I know a lot of people are pretty hype on 2 because you can wear stuff. But for me, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. I just enjoy the mini games a lot more. They're more intuitive, I think, than the previous generations, and even some like later. I can't speak for like 4, 5, and 6 or something like that, but I know like when they started doing the Party Bus, I wasn't a fan, and then I do think this game's better than Super Mario Party. So from what I have to reference off of, this is the best one in my opinion, and I enjoy playing it with other people a lot. Like it's just a lot of fun to see people's reactions, like when you got the chance time and all that stuff. I just love how chaotic it is, and I think that's what a lot of people love about the game. They don't have to be good at it for something crazy to happen, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So moving on to everyone's favorite section, aesthetics. And we're going to get started with the visuales. So Pete Boy, why don't you kick us off?
With pleasure, my guy. Visuals, I found this to be actually a very interesting difference from the first game. Again, I don't know about the second game, so maybe you could speak to this a little bit once I've made my initial point here. But I noticed that this game used a lot of really colorful, cartoony 2D images, like 2D backgrounds and 2D elements in the various mini games, especially. This is different from Mario Party 1, where they mainly used like three-dimensional, kind of low detail Nintendo 64 ass environments, which, is to be expected and was fine and good. But they definitely changed it for this game. They made it look, I would say, a little bit more like Paper Mario, which I guess makes sense because I'm pretty sure this game came out after Paper Mario for the N64. This game came out in 2001. I don't know offhand when Paper Mario came out, but probably like 2000, if I were to guess. Fact checkers. But it was an interesting difference, and I'm not sure which one I prefer, actually.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, the map is kind of like 2D, and I'll be honest, and I don't think the game has aged super well, and the textures don't look very good. So like the 2D stuff hasn't particularly aged well. And even the 3D models are kind of blockier than most games. So there's not a lot of things that like, oh, wow, this looks awesome. But yeah, you're right. I don't know which I would prefer. I haven't seen Mario Party 1 to really know. But to me, like how it looked, like when we were playing it again, I was like, ooh, this is what it looks like. So there is that. I do think the animations and visual effects were done quite well, actually. There were actually some pretty cool animations and stuff like that. Like when you're coming down from the giant star when like you're selecting a game and it's like, and then like the star comes down there and the dice like spins and he goes, hi. Like I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of animations like that are done really well. So they put a lot of effort in those areas, but yeah, maybe it's just that the 2D texture thing just didn't age well, but and maybe at its time it was like, okay, this looks pretty cool. But yeah, it's kind of ugly when you're just going around the board.
On the topic of the sort of cutscene elements, you got to shout out the watermelon-looking Toad Genie guy who... he's the one who flies you straight to the star, isn't he? Yeah, because you use the lamp as the item, the magic lamp. And that dude, amazing cutscene. He's got a mustache. The reason I call him the watermelon is because his pants are kind of watermelon-ish in texture. They've got like the green stripes going on, all that good stuff. But so I think I see what you're getting at, where they maybe like the presentation and stuff like that, I think is a little elevated. And that's the part that's really charming to this day, whereas the actual graphics themselves are kind of lacking.
Yeah. Also, let's get that guy in for Smash. Who's with me?
I agree, man. Would you rather have 20 Fire Emblem characters or one Toad Genie? I know which one gets my vote.
Toad Watermelon Genie.
Toad Watermelon Genie.
Oh my gosh. Everybody would flip. That'd be awesome. But yeah, I didn't really have too much to say about the visuals other than those two things that you had mentioned and then I kind of mentioned. So if you have anything to add.
The one thing I have to add is kind of a rant about Super Mario Party. Because there is one part of that game that I have a very strong opinion on, and I think this game that we're reviewing now will be a good excuse for me to go on a rant about it, so all the listeners can enjoy another PW rant. In Super Mario Party, the user interface and the graphic design and the typography and all that is very clean and simple and crisp, some might say. But to me, it looks very dull in the context of a Mario Party game. When you compare it with something like these N64 games where they use like these wacky fonts for everything and like bright colors are flying around everywhere and it's like really an overload for your eyes. And you compare it to Super Mario Party where it's like, oh, here's some like, I mean, it's a good font, it's a good typeface that was invented in like the 70s and has staying power and all that, and like I respect it. But like in a game called Super Mario Party, right, you have this like really, I mean, bland font. Like in this context, it's super bland and boring, and it makes the game feel less of a party to me and more like some game that Nintendo churned out because they could. Yeah, which maybe is what they did. But it's like it's this one little thing as a professional graphic designer.
I knew that was
That
coming.
just really gets me going. It's like, I don't know, man. It's supposed to be fun and crazy and stuff, and it just looks sedate. So that's one thing I appreciate about these older games looking back on them.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that I didn't think about. That is very true. And sometimes you do wonder why, like, Super Mario Party lacks so much, like,
Pizzazz.
oomph. Yeah, just something, right? And that's, like, one of the things. Like, it's not the thing, but it's, like, just one of the small things that's, like, a culmination of other things that make Super Mario Party, you know, like, not as appealing as this one to me. And so, like, yeah, I agree. It does kind of look like a kid just kind of string together the UI, but that's kind of the point, right? That's kind of like the feel that it's going, and it's like a lot more charming than Super Mario Party.
Yeah.
This isn't a review of Mario Party 3. This is like a total shit on of Super Mario Party. So if you came here for a review of Mario Party 3, you're sadly mistaken. But yeah, I agree with your point. That's actually a really good point.
Thanks, man.
That being said, I guess we're ready to give our ratings for the visualis.
I guess so. I'll go first this time. I gave it another hot, fresh 70.
70.
70.
You'd be happy to know I went lower this time too. I went a 75. I gave a lot of credit to the animations. I can't ignore that. You gotta give credit to our homie, mushroom watermelon guy, whatever, Genie.
Yeah.
Shout outs to him.
He deserves it.
But yeah. I think we're pretty on par there. Moving on to audio. Unlike the visuals, I think the soundtrack is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It doesn't blow me away or anything, but it's really catchy, and I can still recognize it to this day. You know, like there's a lot of tunes that I find that are really cool. I don't want to sing them because it's just going to be weird, but I've done that many times on here, so I guess I might as well. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it was really good. Nothing very iconic, like I said. The sound effects are really what makes the audio for me.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes sense too for a game like this, like Mario Party, to kind of be light and fun, and that's what the sounds were of this game. There's just a lot of sounds like Bowser, like whoa, 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 and it's just I don't know how to explain it. It's really hard to explain sounds, and I feel like I'm fumbling over my words. But all you need to know, really, TLDR, soundtrack's pretty solid, and the sound effects are really, really solid. And I think that makes for a good quality sound game. You know what I mean?
I agree. I wish that we had So I'm pretty happy with the amount of Mario Party that we played because, as I mentioned, it's not really my favorite social activity. But the one thing I regret about us not playing more is that I didn't get to hear more board soundtracks. Because the two that I heard, one of them was the Penguin World and the other one was the desert, I believe.
Yeah.
They were bumping. Like, I was enjoying them. And part of it is because you listen to it over and over and over and over and over again, obviously. But I thought they were genuinely good tunes, repetition aside. And the minigames had fun music, and I totally agree with you on the sound effects. The Mario Party announcer from back in the day, I think, is a legend. She just did such an amazing job, especially Chance Time. I don't want to do it too loud because I have roommates to be considerate of. But it's amazing. Screw them. It's amazing. And another thing that I think Super Mario Party miserably fails at is recapturing that same energy.
Oh, man. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Man, what happened to Mario Party?
We're like getting more mad about it as the review
What
goes.
do they do? Oh, my gosh. Oh, but yeah, no, super memorable. I don't really know what else to say other than it was just freaking good, man.
I guess the last tidbit I have is it was good to hear that they added some new little voice clips for the player characters compared to the first game.
Yeah.
Because they could have probably just gotten away with not adding stuff, but they did. So they went that little extra mile on the sound effects, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, hell yeah. You could also go to, there's the sound room, which I never did as a kid, but when we were playing, I was like having a lot of fun going through those sounds.
Yeah.
In the sound room, you can go through like every sound for every character in every situation. So I was like, this is pretty dope.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess that wraps it up for audio.
Yeah. What's your hot fresh score?
So my hot fresh score is an 84.
Dude, I gave it an 85.
Damn, we're on point now.
I beat you.
We were a little off track to begin with, but I think we're syncing back up.
Yeah, I agree. Syncing up is what I love to do.
Well, moving on to some other people's favorite section, content.
We got cones, we got tents. Put them together, you get content.
I'm very interested to see the difference in our scores here. It's gonna be interesting.
Well, the thing is, and I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit here on our operation, but I may have to sort of take or follow your lead on this because you're the one who has all the experience with the game. I only played it for like a few hours total. I did read about some of the features online, so I'd know a little bit. But I'm gonna let you start off on this section and see where it takes us.
Okay. All right. Well, I think for a Mario Party game, I think it actually has quite a bit of content. It has more maps than the current iteration of Mario Party, the Switch.
Womp.
I'm not sure about if it has more characters, but I think it's pretty close. I want to say Super Mario Party has more characters, but I feel like nowadays they could just pump those out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of mini games too, and not to say that other iterations don't have more mini games or anything like that. But like I mentioned before, it just felt like a lot of effort was put into each mini game, a lot of thought and care and things like that. Where you've got, sorry again to shit on them, but Super Mario Party, it felt like there's not a lot of effort that's put into those games. They're very. It's not that they're not fun. It's just that they're not like outrageously ambitious.
Yeah.
So it's got that going for it. If that weren't enough, you have two other fun modes that you can play. Actually, three. One being the minigame mode, obviously, where you can go back and play any minigame that you've unlocked. And they're organized by the type of games, like battle minigames, item minigames even, which I found to be pretty fun. And this is kind of how you can get good at the game, really. Like as good as you can be in Mario Party.
Speedruns win.
Yeah, basically. I thought that was pretty cool. The other mode is battle mode, where you can play against you and another person, or even a computer, which is kind of weird. I don't recommend that, but it's a pretty interesting mode. I think I haven't played battle mode in a while because I'd rather just play the full mode. But I believe it's just battle mini games, which is kind of interesting. I think the whole strategy behind it is a little bit different. But yeah, growing up, I didn't play that one a lot because when people came over or family or whatever, we always played the giant board game mode. But I have played it. It's just been a while. But that's another mode that you can go into. And lastly, there's a story mode. I don't know about any other Mario parties, but I can't remember one that had a story mode. So how cool is that? It's pretty challenging too. I don't think I've ever beaten it. Yeah, I just think it's really cool that it has all this content for a Mario Party game that, I haven't really known Mario Party games to have a lot of content other than the board game itself. But I feel like this one does a good job in going the extra mile. Yeah. And you could see that, and really when you play the game, you could see all the extra effort that they put into the game, whether it be the animations and things like that, or the sounds, or all these game modes and things like that. You could just tell there was more effort put into this game than a game 20 years later down the road.
Oof.
Albeit, they didn't have enough resources like they did in today's world, but I mean, it's kind of, I know we're shitting on Super Mario Party for this, but I think it's really kind of a testament to Mario Party 3 that it can have all this content that holds up even today. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's especially impressive when you consider that they probably could have gotten away with just having the main board game mode, right? Because that's pretty much, Mario Party 1 had basically the board game mode, the mini game room where you just play the games individually, and then it had mini game island, which required a linear progression through different mini games, and that was fun. And I actually do think people like to speed around that nowadays. But when it comes right down to it, it's mainly just the main board game mode, because that's what Mario Party is, right? But with a game like this, from the sounds of it and from what I saw yesterday in my research, they really did add several new modes that in some ways are like repackaging of existing content, but done in such a way that it feels a little more intentional, I suppose, and that you could get more value as a player out of that new content. So it's kind of impressive that they, I would say, like, doing anything beyond the main board game is kind of extra credit when Mario Party is concerned, at least back then. But it sounds like they did a good job of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't really know that I have really a whole lot more to say, because at the end of the day, it's Mario Party, and everybody knows kind of what Mario Party is. I feel like it's really hard to explain this game and like all the things that it does well. But like I said, for a Mario Party game, I think this one has one of the best contents out of all of them.
Yeah.
Take that as you will. I don't know how people normally view content in Mario Party. You don't like we've said before, and like pretty much throughout this review, it's not like super fun to play by yourself. I will say that's one thing that Super Mario Party probably did better than any other Mario Party is you can play that by yourself and have a pretty good time with the challenge mode. And challenge mode is this thing where it's kind of like a story mode where you go through and you play like all the mini games from Super Mario Party, and you have to beat them on like this under these ridiculous conditions, and you like can unlock certain things as you progress, like different characters and stuff like that. So that's also how you 100% the game. Fun fact: I did 100% Super Mario Party, and I had a fun time doing it. And I still have these opinions about Super Mario Party, but I don't think Super Mario Party is a bad game. It's just not a great one.
Yeah,
I think this one's a really good game, and it's better than Super Mario Party. So I feel like that's saying something.
I think so too, man.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot to add. I know that you can view stats of what you've done in this game, from like how many wins you have, I think, or how many times you've played a mini game. I don't know, something random like that. But I thought that's pretty cool because I'm a stats guy, so I like to look at stats.
Hence the premise of our show.
Yeah, true.
The one thing I got to shout out before we wrap up the content section, because I didn't know where else to put this, but it needs to be somewhere, was how one particular time we landed on the Bowser space, and I swear to you, that motherfucker was reclining in a paint me like one of your French girls pose.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was nice.
We landed on that space like 4 or 5 times one time because we got cursed. And then we kept going like 2 spaces or like only up to 3 spaces. And so we all kept landing on Bowser spaces, and we all kept getting cursed. It was actually quite funny. I've never seen anything like that.
Luckily, the curses didn't stack, but it was still, I was having a good time. I think if I were taking the game seriously, I would have been very annoyed, but I was just goofing off with my buds. And it was definitely a lot of fun to be repeatedly cursed by one Mr. Bowser.
Thanks, Bowser.
Thanks, Obama.
Oh man, but yeah, it's things like that. You have like stories to tell from Mario Party, like what we just said. Like that's kind of what makes the game so great, and it's just all of these things that you can have happen to you in Mario Party 3 that I feel like make the game what it is, and all the different maps and all the different characters and items and shops and different kind of spaces that you can land on. It feels like a complete Mario Party game. And I don't know, it's a good feeling.
The game exists not for you to play it, but for it to create random situations that you and your friends laugh at.
Yeah, like, basically.
The game is there to facilitate you and your friends having a rambunctious time, I'm realizing. Yeah. And so it's not so much about you playing the game, it's about the game playing you.
Basically, yeah. Well, cool. I think I'm ready to give my score if you are.
I am indeed. I will go first this time. I gave it an 80.
An 80. Okay. I figured it wouldn't be as high as me. I gave it a 91.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit biased, I think. I think a lot of bias is coming in there. So maybe we'll even out there. I just have a lot of fun with it. And I think in terms of Mario Party, it's really good. Maybe I should stray away from in terms of Mario Party and think more of it as a whole. But still, I think you can have a lot of fun with this game in many different ways. And I think that's just one thing that speaks to the content of the game. and the effort that they clearly put into it. So I got to give them props for it.
Yeah.
With that being said, let's do some number crunching.
All right. Listeners, don't go away. We'll be right back. So here I am, segueing us back in the show. That didn't really flow well, but I'm going to say it anyway.
We're back.
We take those.
So we did some number crunching, and we did some calculations.
Beep boop.
It took us a long time, but we finally come up with the IG score for Mario Party 3. But before we do that, let's do our recap. So I'll start first and say that I gave gameplay an 89, visuals a 75, audio an 84, which gave me an aesthetics score of 79.5. And then to wrap it up, I gave content a 91, which made my overall score an 86.5.
That's a good solid score. I like that score. I also like my score, and I will tell you the components which went into my score. Gameplay, I gave it a 7T. Visuals, I also gave it a 7T. Audio gave it an 85, so big jump for that one. My combined aesthetics score is 77.5. And for content, I dropped a hot, nice, fresh 80 on there, which brings my overall score to a 75.8.
Nice. So, interestingly enough, that brings our score for Mario Party 3 to an 81.2 on IG score, which ranks it 28 out of 32 games. Now, that's pretty low, but still, an 81.2 is not too shabby. It's still a solid game, and I think that's pretty respectable for it. It's right below Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and right above Super Monkey Ball 2. So I think it's a pretty good spot.
Interesting because Super Monkey Ball 2 definitely has a lot of party appeal with all the mini games it has.
Yeah.
But it also has, the main meat and potatoes, you could say, is the one-player mode. So kind of interesting that these two quote-unquote party games are right next to each other in our rankings.
Yeah. I think one excels at the other better, right? So Super Monkey Ball 2 is like better single player, whereas Mario Party 3 is the better multiplayer.
Yeah.
I think it is interesting. All these numbers are interesting, and if you find them interesting too, you can look at them on our website, theigcast.com, where you can find all of our rankings and even all of our episodes. And, it took me a long time to make that site and a lot of effort, so go check it out. It's pretty cool.
Better click on it or else. If you don't, we'll know.
And speaking of better do this or else, please subscribe to our Patreon. But yeah, no, had a lot of fun rating this one. I think we had some really good discussions on this game. It's not as high as I would have rated it, but I'm happy with where it is, and I think that's a pretty solid score.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to look at the Metacritic or IGN scores or anything like that, but I'm pretty satisfied.
I'm just happy to get back in the saddle, man. I'm happy to be recording the shows again with my good buddy K-Slugs.
Hell yeah. I know we've been kind of on a little bit of a hiatus, and our game is kind of dropped. But if you'd like to support us, please consider subscribing to our Patreon. How do you say it?
Patreon.
Becoming a patron of the IG Cast. We could use the support for really just helping fund our podcast, keeping it going, help us afford new games that we'd like to try out and buy. We definitely appreciate anybody who is a patron and has helped us out this far. So if you want to help out in some way, that would be the best way.
We got some people supporting us, though, still, right?
Yes. We have Mallory Sutton, the homie.
The homie.
She's been a patron since...
Day one, pretty much.
For 9 months. Almost a year. And then Simon, our good buddy, Simon Webb, he's been a patron for 12 months. So shout outs to Mallory and Simon. Simon, actually, I think you now have won a shirt. So expect that soon. And happy birthday, buddy.
Oh, was it his birthday recently?
Yeah, he's getting old. He's turning 72.
Oh, yeah.
I think. So he's getting up there. But yeah, thanks for the support, guys. It definitely means a lot to us. So
it really does.
Anyway, you can find us on social media. This is kind of the worst transition we've done, this outro. But
hey, we're rusty, man. It's been a few months.
We're a little rusty. Forgive us, but Find us on social media on Twitter, at the IGcast, I believe. It's been a while.
The IG_cast.
That's it. Yes. The IG_cast. And we're also on Instagram. It's something similar to that. I think that one is the IGcast. And we're on Facebook, but we're really most active on Twitter, and we'll continue to be active on Twitter. So hit us up with some tweets. Tell us what you thought about the episode, and what games you'd like to see in the future. You know, we're always open to ideas. I know we've got a lot of popular requests that may or may not be in this season. You'll have to stay tuned to find out. But I'm pretty excited about the game list for this season, and I think you guys will be too.
Yeah. You know, it's a new year, new us, as the saying goes. Since the new year is the number 2020, it's going to be my personal goal to get us 2,020 Patreon subscribers before the end of the year.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, guys, make sure...
hell yeah.
I'm just kidding. But if you want to spread the word, get your friends, get your cool, nerdy, epic gamer friends who are interested in a lot of retro games and some new games as well. Let them know about us, because we like to reach the ears of many people nationwide and across the world.
Let them know. Let them know.
Let them know.
Let them know it's time to go.
To the igcast.com.
Speaking of time to go, thanks for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you, I guess, in like 2 weeks from now for episode 2. So stay tuned for that. And love you too, guys.
Love you too.
Mwah.